Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Inspiring Minds podcast. Today, we have a sweet story that everyone should hear. Chocolates will have a different meaning after listening to this podcast. Tareq Hadhad was studying to be a doctor in Syria, and his family owned a successful chocolate company in Damascus. Things changed in an instant when bombs destroyed their home and chocolate factory. The family fled to safety in Lebanon, and 3 years later were welcomed to Nova Scotia, Canada as refugees. Today, we are sharing the Piece by Chocolate, the story where each piece comes with a message of resilience, kindness, and a deep desire to give back. Tareq Hadhad, it's an honor to have you here with us. In reading about your journey, I was thinking to myself, nothing can stop a human being from succeeding when we make the choice to succeed. When we make a non-negotiable decision that this is the only way. I had the honor to be at the premiere movie yesterday at Expo 2020. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Hanan. That means a lot to me.
What an endeavor. How did you feel watching your story in the big screen?
It was extraordinary. It was absolutely surreal. I had absolutely dreamed about this moment for a while. You know, we have been working on the movie for almost 5 years, since 2017. The first time I met the director, Jonathan Kaiser, and the team, and they were all really passionate about bringing this value to the world. You know, we are not only making chocolate, but we are spreading a value of peace, inclusion, love, kindness. All of that was the secret recipe that we brought to the world yesterday throughout Expo 2020 and the Canadian Pavilion, and the amazing opportunity for us to premiere our movie here was absolutely something that I think for me out of this world.
It is. It was very touching to meet the group and the producer, and he was saying that he did it from his heart, and it was showing in his products. Way before the circumstances that got you to leave Syria to Lebanon and then to Canada, what were your dreams then, way before all this started, and your aspirations?
Well, I belong to a family where, 99% of Syrian mothers, they want their kids to become physicians, and 1% of them, they want them to be engineers. So I'm from the 99%. Yes. I was growing up to be a doctor. I was very passionate about making that difference in the world throughout healing people, throughout treating people, throughout diminishing their pain. And that was certainly what I grew up on. You know, I was a book nerd. I love to read. I love to explore what it means really for human beings to help each other.
Yeah.
And at that sacrifice and help, comes a great noble value that brings a human being together. So since I was born, I was always really trying to make a difference while watching how my family were making their own difference throughout the business, throughout our enterprise, throughout the foundation that my mother was leading as well, to make change within the community, within the lives of children with cancer, throughout the lives of those who were less fortunate, who did not have much, although my family started with almost nothing as well. Yeah. And we didn't have each other at some point. In 1987 was when business started.
Okay.
Although we had nothing, we knew that we had each other.
That's amazing.
We knew that as a family, we always believe that in times of test, family is best.
Absolutely.
And so I was growing up in that total mindset of, if I had any challenge, if I had any troubles, I have my family with me. They're always going to be there. And I think getting into medicine was certainly that one step of the way that I felt that I'm getting closer to my passion. So certainly my aspiration and my goal was to be a physician, although I believed after leaving Syria and after losing that passion that probably it was pretty much an enclosed world. I did not explore a lot of the freedoms of really thinking that there is so much outside of that world.
So much other things you can
Exactly. I can help in any way I can. And then I absolutely tried to understand that success, accomplishment, fulfillment is a choice. Everything around that is a choice. Whether you make it, whether you take it, whether you are lucky, whether you are not lucky, whether you are fortunate, whether you are unfortunate, you can lead your way to a place where you can feel successful. And it is very relative, you know. Success is different for many people. So when I was in Syria, the success looked very different to me than when I left it.
You left Canada. And you landed to Canada in January in Nova Scotia, Antigonish city.
It is a small town.
It is a small town. As a Canadian, I know what that means, but can you walk us through your first thoughts, feelings when you landed? What was going on through your head?
I left Lebanon to Canada in December 2015, and when I arrived there, I arrived in Toronto, and then, you know, I didn't know what was anything outside of Toronto, because as immigrants, you only know about Toronto, actually Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver. You don't know anything about small towns. You don't know how actually you're going to survive outside of these urban places. So from Toronto, they called me. I was in the hotel. They called me around midnight. They were like, Tareq, prepare yourself. Tomorrow is your flight to Halifax, Nova Scotia. I'm like, what's Halifax? I want to stay in Canada. They were like, Halifax is in Canada, just on the other side. So I arrived in Halifax the next day, and I was living in the unknown, in the uncertainty. I had many fears. I had many, you know, much more excitement than fears. And then I started training myself, you know, that I come from a medical background, so I know that the symptoms of excitement, being excited and being anxious, are exactly the same.
Okay.
You sweat, your blood pressure goes up, your blood rates go up, right? And you have the exact same kind of energy, right? To really face that unknown and that uncertainty. So I started training myself to not call myself anxious, but to call myself excited.
Nice.
And I was excited to arrive in a place where I had known nobody, when I didn't speak the language, where I was really afraid, what am I going to do? You know, it's a small place. It's people there don't share my culture, don't speak the language that I spoke for my entire life. And when I landed there, I just felt a new sense of family, a new sense of community. And that was absolutely incredible. So I landed in Halifax, and the group of Antigonish, they came to the airport. It was a very late flight, I remember. And they drove 2 hours from Antigonish to the airport in Halifax to welcome me. And they were carrying flowers and signs, and they were saying, "Welcome to Canada," Tareq, in Arabic and English. And I'm like, oh my God, guys. Or like, are you Tareq? I'm like, yes, I'm Tareq, but I'm sure I'm not Tareq you are looking for. And actually, when I was going down, I'm like, oh my God, everyone in Canada is called Tareq. You know, everyone is holding these signs for "Welcome to Canada, Tareq." I'm like, of course, they're not waiting for me. You know, I'm not that important. And then when I went down, actually, they were waiting for me. And we didn't know each other, but we were connecting as human beings, you know, on the basics of, I just lost everything in the war. And they had the opportunity and they had the chance to help and make a difference in that one human's life.
Yes.
And they came to the airport to make that difference. And it was a very tearful reception, I remember. So we drove to Antigonish. It was snowy. It was like -15. It was really cold.
It's a nice welcome.
Absolutely, yes. That's a typical Canadian welcome. So I arrived in Antigonish, and I knew then that it was a very, absolutely wonderful place. It's a small town, 5,000.
Yeah.
But then I also started realizing you don't need a big place to start. You can build your own family outside of your immediate family.
Absolutely.
Like you can create
you made that choice to look
Exactly.
at things differently.
Exactly. And the 5,000 people became our immediate family right away. They came, knocked on our doors, and were like, how can we help? And then I remember the sense of hospitality. I went and we got dinner with everyone in town, and then they were telling me all the stories about the Antigonish movement, and social enterprises there, and how the town has shaped the lives of many people who stop by the town, because there is a university and there is an institute called CODI for leadership training. So people come from around the world actually for a few weeks and a few months to stay there. So I know that I just arrived in a place where there's great leadership to make the world a better place, and that there's nowhere else actually on the entire world I would rather be.
And you chose to stay, and Peace by Chocolate got born in Antigonish. Can you tell us
Yes,
that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Peace by Chocolate was born based on the idea that we can rebuild our factory that was destroyed in the war in Syria, that the war probably has killed everything that we own, destroyed our lives, but it did not steal from us our skills and our talents. That's something you don't lose in a war.
Huge, yes.
Right? And that's what we wanted to build on. It's like we arrived in Canada, hey, we didn't have much, but we had our clothes and we had our family, and here we are. And the human beings are adaptable, they are survivable, they are adjustable, we can rebuild. As much as, we have that resiliency that's inside each one of us. As long as we're alive, we can do anything.
In the movie, your dad was a huge component because despite the language barrier, the change, the weather, he was stubborn.
That's right, yes.
He knew what he was getting to, right? So can you tell us about how your dad started this dream?
Well, the movie a little bit, exaggerates about the father-son thing and, the entire thing, but just for dramatic purposes.
Yes.
But the actual thing is certainly my father and my family and everyone was surrounding that middle aisle in the kitchen one day after a week. We arrived in Canada and they were like, okay, what are we going to do? We need to give back. We need to pay it forward. We need to help our community. We need to help Syrians still as refugees in camps. We need to do this, do that. And there was a lot of discussions. I was like, wait on, guys. Hold on. We just arrived here. So let's just do one thing at a time. Let's rebuild the business, try to work on it. And at that time, I was still trying to get into med school here in Canada. And then I realized that a friend of mine told me, do you know if you are in Toronto and if you had a heart attack, it's safer for you to be in a taxi rather than being in an emergency room at the hospital. I'm like, why is it safer for you to have a heart attack in a taxi? Because 70% of cab drivers in Toronto are immigrant physicians who cannot go back to medicine, cannot practice because the country does not allow them to. So for me, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm not going to let that break me or set me down. I'm going to fight that. I'm going to change. I'm going to pivot. I think that moment, the turning point in my life was when I made that decision. It was a time for us as a family to come together. Everyone had certain skills. My dad knew how to make chocolate. My mother knew how to help him. I was speaking the language of the community. My parents were still learning that. My siblings were taste testers. So everyone was around the table, making the best out of it. And that's how the company really started. It was in the middle of the winter. We went to a winter's market. In the movie, they show it in the church. It was actually a community market in town. Yeah. So we went there and there was a line of 200 people at 8:30 a.m. waiting for us. I'm like, oh my God, who wakes up at 8:30 to buy chocolate? Canadians do when they believe that, this is good. And this is because immigrants bring something unique, something new. Yeah. And that's certainly what we were very, very encouraged by. It's like the support from the community was absolutely outstanding. I will never be able to pay it back because whoever came to support us in those early days knew that they are planting these seeds of helping a small business to grow, which is very noble, as noble as the value that we were spreading. And at that time, the business was really trying to figure out, what are we going to do? What's the value? Yeah. What's the impact? What's the ROI? And we call it now the ROK, actually. It's not ROI. You know what ROK?
No.
ROI is return on investment.
Yes.
We don't have ROI in Peace by Chocolate. We have ROK, which is return on kindness.
Oh.
So whatever you give, you get back. This is the cycle of kindness.
That is a nice business
model. So that's why actually we call the business Peace by Chocolate, because we believed that peace is a noble thing that everyone should fight for. Yeah. Chocolate is a product of happiness, because my dad used to say everyone eats chocolate will be happy.
I know.
So that's how the business started.
So if we have our students and our listeners now maybe are thinking of starting something and they see challenges ahead of them, what would you tell them from your own journey and experience? What advice you would give them?
many layers in the advice. It's all around, really. If you are living under a challenge, always think about it that you only have two options. There's no third one. Whether you play the role of the victim, or whether you play the role of the victor, right?
There you go. It's a question of a choice.
Absolutely, it's absolutely their own choice. And I'm not saying that being a victor is easy, but it's certainly better than just making sure that you do not surrender to the circumstances around you. I think what's happening in the world right now, when a lot of students, a lot of people see the challenges, at the same time, when we put that picture for us, a lot of people have big goals in life. And we get frustrated that sometimes we cannot achieve these goals. They are unrealistic. A lot of the times people have that mountain and they want to get to the summit. They see the summit. They know where they want to go. They know where they want to get to. The entire thing is they don't see the mountain.
Yeah.
And you have to see the mountain to get to the summit.
You have to walk the path.
Exactly. You have to plan your own path, whether you fly by helicopter, whether you climb, whether you hike, whether you pave the way. Doesn't really matter. This is your own path. You do it your way.
Yeah.
But then you have to make sure you plan. And you have to make sure that you are prepared to face all of those challenges along the way. Because if you do not prepare yourself, you will be frustrated. And I think by planning, then you are setting yourself up for success. For me personally, really what helped me, understand that value is, you have really not too many options, when you have all of those challenges, whether you can sit down and complain and say you cannot do anything, which is very easy. Anyone can sit down and complain like, I cannot do this, I cannot graduate, I cannot build business, I cannot do this, I cannot do that. Or you can dig down and find solutions.
Find opportunities, yeah.
And find the opportunities. And if you do not find the opportunities, create them.
Yeah.
And I think human beings are, we are human beings for a reason. If God wanted you to just stick around and don't move, He would have created you a tree, right?
Yeah.
Like you have legs for a reason. And if you don't find your opportunity, move and create it. And that's really what matters, I think, the most. So yes, absolutely. Another advice, I think, for a lot of those people now around the world, they are taking advantage. It's absolutely beautiful to see people taking advantage of the connectivity around the world right now, and using internet and social media, for their connectivity, to understand what other people are doing, to build the new aspirations. Yeah. That globalization has created that amazing environment for people to learn about each other, like 86, to learn about other people, how to make chocolate. There was no YouTube.
Yeah.
There was no Google. There was no internet. He had to go to the library for 3 months to find the books that he wanted to read, to find the recipes, to call friends in Egypt to ask them. And there was no accessibility to information whatsoever.
And his background, he was
a civil
engineer.
That's right.
Yeah.
So he didn't really, they didn't have the tools, they didn't have the means that we have right now. I think we are living in heaven. To be honest, I think we are living in paradise. What else do we need? Yeah. The bar for an ordinary life has been raised so much. So even reaching and putting your goals up for extraordinary is much more, I think, appreciated during this time, because we know how tough it is. I know that 99% of people they shoot for the ordinary life, and only 1% really make it to the extraordinary.
That's true.
So I think your chance as well to make sure that if it's not working, to go networking. Right? So if it's not working for you, always look for these opportunities to network with people around you, to use, again, the internet and social media.
Yeah, to
learn from others, right?
Yeah.
We don't know a lot,
Yes.
And always be willing that if you are in a situation where you have any hardship, make sure that you don't lose. You either win or you either learn.
If anything you would say you learned from your dad's story, since he started this in the 80s, right? Up to when you left Syria and then in Canada. If top 3 things your dad have taught you, what would that be?
My dad taught me principles. My dad taught me to appreciate family. My dad really taught me self-determination and self-focus. And I think what my family has gone through was a great lesson for me, because it got us out of our comfort zone a lot.
Yes.
Like, you know, when we
that's
lived,
the basis of your resiliency, right?
exactly. Yes. And I mean, we had a successful company in Syria. My father had worked really hard for it. With his blood, sweat, and tears, he built that company from scratch. You know, he was a self-made entrepreneur.
Yeah.
No one helped him from the family. No one was an entrepreneur in the family. They were all judges, doctors, physicians, engineers.
Yeah.
And he was the only one really who took that risk. And by taking that risk, I think he started planting the seeds in the family that, yes, you need to learn it on your way. And I remember my dad, at so many points, would be like, you know what? You have to, I'm not going to tell you how to do this. You know, when I was in elementary school and junior school, I'm like going out to him for math problems and all of that. I was like, I'm not going to help you. Go figure it out. So, you know, I was always on my own, you know, trying to figure things out. And that really helped me. And I remember my family were like, you know, there for me when I needed them, for sure. They didn't leave me in times of trouble.
Yeah. But
they also wanted me to experience how do I self-teach myself, right? In many, many lessons in life.
Yeah.
But the biggest lessons that my father has taught me certainly is the path for integrity is caring for your family and also making sure that you are helping your neighbors and be at service to others.
That's powerful. In closing our podcast, what else do you want to say to our listeners?
Well, I have a ton, actually. I wish we had like 3 hours, to be honest, because I would love to share a couple of things. You know, for sure, a lot of people probably are not going to be war survivors. You know, a lot of people are born in countries, especially in Canada, you know, especially in Western countries, in stable places, you know, where they don't have, you know, when they didn't have to experience what we have experienced in the Middle East, in Syria.
Yeah.
I really hope that people can learn from each other. I really hope that people can always try to make sure they look out for those who are struggling and suffering more than they are doing.
And learn from their stories.
Absolutely, learn from their stories. So, because we are not immune. Our story can happen to anyone.
Yeah.
No one is immune. You know, there are wars now in multiple places around the world, and in places even people didn't imagine would happen. Like, you know, so
anything can happen.
Anything can happen to anyone. So I think, as well as, you know, we need to change that perspective about immigration and refugees, because the term refugee has been, you know, kind of dragged on and on and on for many people who were just living it temporarily, you know, for a certain period of time, and now they just moved on. So I think a term refugee is not a title for people for their entire lives. You know, I mean, the term refugee is a description probably for a certain point in time when you probably have lost everything, but certainly being a refugee.
It's not an identity.
It's not an identity. It doesn't give you actually any identity. It kind of remind you that you have lost everything and you had to go through all of this trauma, and you have to go find your way throughout the harshest situations, the harshest circumstances, where you didn't have any tools and you were not even treated as a human being, right? When you only had that certificate, a number from the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and they were like telling you, hey, you know, we know that you have many skills, but we don't care about them. We know that you have much to offer to the world, but we don't care about it. Here is your UNHCR number, and you have to, you know, to figure out things on your own. And I think the opportunity for me to immigrate to Canada was life-changing in many ways, and I will never be able to pay it back. You know, Canada is a great country of integrity, of dignity, of respect, of fairness, of inclusion, of acceptance, of democracy,
Yes.
of peace. And that's why we are so happy to be there. It's because our values align so much with the country. Our values align so much with how nice people are there, you know, how lovely, you know, and I know that there are much similarity, you know, people around the world. There's always, you know, the good people and there's always the bad people, but certainly the great people in Canada overrule the bad ones. And I truly believe that people in their hearts are good, right? And their circumstances and their lives and their environment change them. And I think people are born to love and they know how to love. And hatred and anxiety usually is taught. I think it is time to unteach hatred and anxiety, to unlearn it too. Because I believe that, you know, this is certainly the time for people to come together and really know what brings us together. And although so many times people think about our differences as a fuel for our kind of to categorize ourselves as enemies, while our differences can be a great thing for us to bring us together to share what we are different about, and can be a sort of a source of strength instead of being a barrier for us to certainly celebrate our differences. So certainly, you know, for me and based on our story, I truly believe that we have come a long way, you know, in a very short period of time. And, you know, we are trying to change the world in one piece of chocolate at a time, one message at a time, but we're also giving back to the communities immensely. We have a Peace on Earth Society, and that society donates to organizations like Canadian Mental Health Association, Indigenous communities, homeless people in cities like in Halifax, and many other welcoming refugees with Refugee Hub, and many other amazing organizations that they celebrate Canadian culture, diversity, and many values. So I really hope people can look it up to understand how businesses can be that source of leadership and source of change. Peace on Earth Society is a great platform that we have established.
It does. It can transform societies.
100%. Now is the time for businesses to not care about profit, to put people above greed, and to celebrate, you know, that if you have that platform, please use it wisely and please use it to change people's lives. So at the end, you know, I know that a lot of people don't know that, but you always have that tool to not, you know, no one can go back and start a new beginning, but everyone can start today and make a new ending.
Thank you so much, Tareq. I hear so many beautiful keywords. I hear risk. I hear determination. I hear kindness. I hear chocolate. I hear keep going. Believe in yourself. You give yourself the identity that you see for yourself. I want to thank you for being here with us. You have a busy schedule, and I'm so honored that I met you here in Dubai. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot for having me. It's been an honor.